Hello again. This is Amira from Art Egypt. And now we have one of the amazing artists who's presenting the AI. I will let him introduce himself better. Hassan Ragab.
Thank you for having me here. I'm one of the artists, but I haven't actually shown my work yet. It's going to be shown today in the evening. It's always tricky to talk about your work when you actually haven't presented it. You didn't present it in real life. So this lecture is everything except the artwork. I think it kind of summarizes what the artwork is about, basically like my work. So it's more like my biography or what I'm really thinking about when I'm creating my work. But the title is the same. It's called like Identity Oblivious. And my work, I mean, I'll talk about my work later on, but can you move that? Yeah, thank you. Basically, maybe in live, but also in this presentation, I have like a couple of questions that are always on my mind. I'm not really, oh, can you go back? Sorry. Okay, so like there are discrete questions that I'm always asking. Like, first of all, why identities are important, and for me, identities are like homes. So imagine like if you're, I don't know, if you live in a street and the street has so many houses, eventually you would want to come up at night to have a place to go back to. Identities are more or less like that for me, especially that I'm now living in the United States, so I'm trying to navigate through like who I am. And I think it's a question that's not only for me, I think it's for the world more or less. And what is exactly an identity and the connection to the idea of originality. So as an identity, do you really belong to one category? Like, are you really purely Egyptian? Are you really purely Muslim? Are you really anything? And again, there's no direct answer to that question. I think we are all part of something, and that connects with the idea of originality, in my opinion, because I don't believe anything is original. I think everything has like some sort of a mix. And this connects really well with my current work. I don't know if people here are familiar with my work, but now I'm more known with my work with generative AI. And with AI, there's a lot of debate about like, what's the role of the person, or like, what's the role of the human being here? And AI cannot be original, and therefore the people who are using AI also, they're not original, which might be a fair point, but again, what is the term of originality? And that's something that, again, I don't have an answer to, but it's something that's keep me occupied, or I think like it's keeping me like up at night. So, oh, awesome. Okay, so maybe it's a good thing at that point to kind of explain where I come from. So I'm Egyptian. I was born and raised in Alexandria, and I'm an architect. I studied architecture. I graduated in 2010. I had two interests. I didn't like the school at all, but I had two interests when I was at school. One of them was history and conservation, and the other one was computational design. And these were like the two ends of the spectrum. So like they're so different from each other, and there was no way for me to kind of wrap my head around both of them, at least when I graduated. But I worked for about 5 or 6 years in museography and exhibition design. I started as a junior architect, and then at one point I was a senior architect. I did like a couple of exhibitions in museums, whether in Cairo, in Qatar, in Dubai. I did one small exhibition in Rome. And it was a great experience because I got to do everything. We were a small studio, so we did everything. We read the client brief, we did the concepts, we did the drawings, we even did the installation. Sometimes we even did like mound making. And this was like a good idea for me to know what it takes to build something in its entirety, which is something that's not very often in architecture. And then I opened my own design studio. It was a furniture design studio, but again, this was part of like me trying to explore computational tools. I was trying to put my hand on everything that I can produce like digital fabricated products with. At that point, I only had access to CNC machines. And my products were developed on that regard. And the point for that is that I was really interested in finding a new visual vocabulary. I didn't like just like the design. Any design that I saw any design that I learned about in school. It just, I don't know, I didn't like it. So it was my way to try to learn as I do. Unfortunately, this project only lasted for 2 years. And then it failed, so I moved to the United States. And then I worked in computational design, but I was actually working in construction. This is the Museum of George Lucas, so it's George Lucas Museum of Narrative Arts. It's in downtown Los Angeles. And I didn't design that, but I helped building that. And that was even more important for me because it gives me like a glimpse of what it takes to build a building. For many architects, that's like a dream job. Like, yes, you're now building one of the most iconic buildings that there will be. But and I was really focused on the engineering processes. So I was mainly we were coding, like you see, like in the diagrams here, how to put the shapes together, how to install the building to be in such a precision that's basically not on the playbook. We had to invite a lot of technicalities to overdo, like to make it come true. But it's very ironic because it's when I realized like what it takes to build a building, and it affected my design philosophy, not in construction, but as in design. And then at one point, like probably 3 years ago, I started playing around with generative AI, and it was a weird moment for me because I haven't seen anything like that before. And I don't know, I was addicted from the first time. It's like the ability that these tools have given me was like nothing I've ever seen before. I was always trying to be at the forefront of the technology, and it's a direct relationship or how it's impacting architecture and design. But now I was playing with like an artistic medium, which has like started to driven my vision, or basically driven my thinking to now I have a tool that allows me to create a new visual vocabulary. Something that I have never seen or I have never experienced before, and it was like I felt like I was sitting at the shotgun at the future of our design and technology. I don't know what to call it, but again, it was a very, very exciting moment for me. And I think at that point I started to realize that in order to create a new vocabulary, I need to find new interesting mixes, or like I need to find the origins of the ideas and try to kind of mix them together. So, and I think like the AI was the ultimate tool for that. It's like, for me, it's the ultimate collage tool. You just put a lot of ideas and you try to really think how to match them together. And no matter how hard you try to think, these tools will always provide you with something new, something that you didn't really anticipate. And I think that was the point when I realized if I was to break the visual code, that will be it. And for me, at that point, I was really interested in the idea of like, make architectural artistic again. And basically, my work gone viral. And it was very, I think it was ironic when my work was featured on the cover of the Architecture, Engineering, and Construction Machine. I thought like, okay, now like this is like an engineering medium, and now it's showing artwork for architecture. So now, yeah, maybe I broke the code. But at that point, something also happened, is that my work started to go viral on social media, and now people can also like start to follow the same formula in a way and replicate the work one way or another. And at that point, I started to realize something else. I think the best way to describe it is that, or maybe like I found a better explanation than how I would want to explain it. So this paper is called The Age of Average by Alex Murrell. I don't know if anybody have read it before, but basically it's talking about the impact of like, I don't want to say conformity, but basically they conducted a research, and it was on a lot of topics. So it was about fashion, on urban, on the urban design, on architecture, on automotive industry, and even on arts. And what they realized is that in the age of capitalism, or in the age of like global demand, everybody wants exactly the same thing. So there's a pattern where all the Airbnbs around the world, they look the same. Otherwise, it won't be successful. Same thing for the cities. Like, this is from the generic cities. So there was a great article by Raym Koolhaas, who is really describing like now the skyscrapers are almost like they are all the same. Same things for the building facades. And that made me think about like the impact of social media and using generative AI. It's just emphasizing more in the idea that we are going or we are marching towards a generic world, a homogeneous language that is basically can be applicable everywhere, but nobody can really relate to. So I recommend like you read this paper. This is a great one. You just Google it and it will pop up on your Google. So again, this brings like a lot of questions going back. Okay, if I wanna break the visual vocabulary code away from the average, I need to understand what exactly is identity. And if there are a certain aesthetics, which one should I be following as an artist or as a designer? And will that lead my work to be a kitsch? And on the other hand, what really kitsch is? Who decides it? Like does a curator in a museum decide, yeah, no, this is kitsch, I don't like it, or the other one, or another one will say, yeah, no, this is good. Like, I have no idea at that point what is good and what is beautiful. I really can't decide. And one of the biggest challenges in the world that we live in right now, like there's a capitalist conformity. Everybody wants money. Everybody wants to be successful. How's that impacting the art world? And how does technology enables such a mentality by social media and usage of like the algorithms on social media for your work to go viral, or using generative AI to replicate whatever you think is like, will be a hit. And by that, and by my work, am I really ushering the world into a new aesthetic mediocrity? Like, am I helping in the spread of like this age of average was my work? And at that point, of course, was using AI, what is the creative process? Like, do you control it or you don't control it? That challenge is, I think it's a challenge for every artist. Like, what level of control do I have over my work? But with generative AI, you multiply that in 100 or something. It's just crazy how to think about, to wrap your mind around this new technology, because it's just like we as a species, we're still tipping our toes in these unknown waters. Nobody knows how these technologies really have to offer or how to control it. So now that kind of brings me to like my ideas about what is a visual vocabulary. And it's very interesting to using like the public models like Midjourney and Stable Diffusion. I'm not training my AIs more often, I'm using the public models. And that's because I want to explore their potential on the global ethics or like the global aesthetics that our people are using, because these are democratizing tools. Everybody are using them. So this will drive the art world. This will drive our world one way or another. And one of the things that were really interested, that I stumbled upon early on when I was using generative AI, is the bias, is like the ability for the generative models to generate one thing over the other. They were not really good with ancient, was basically Egyptian architecture. By Egyptian, I'm not particularly saying ancient Egyptian, but I'm talking about the different layers of like the architectural history in Egypt. However, they do some things better than the other. Like early on, the tools understood what a pyramid is, but they didn't understand like a specific temple, like they didn't understand the Karnak, they didn't understand the Komombo. Sorry. What happened? What's going on? Sorry. Yep, here we go. So basically, with every new tool, there's, I don't know, like by discovering new tools, you discover like the vulnerabilities, but also the opportunities of what these tools can present. I think at that point, I was really, really privileged to be an Egyptian architect, because now you have such an interesting vocabulary that you can relate to. And also, like, because I think the silver lining of being a country that almost got invaded by every empire in the history that could reach it. Now we have like this interesting mix of identities, and these mixes are intersecting with one another. And the problem is that, maybe another problem, I don't know how to describe it, but when you study the history, you always study it in parts. So you study like ancient Egyptian history, and maybe you divide that into like the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom. And then if you're studying like Islamic architecture, you study like the Mamluki, the Fatimi, or like the modern architecture. So, but maybe AI can help us like, bridge these gaps one way or another to see what's in between. But also can help us like to navigate in a very artistic, very abstract way to formulate some form of an Egyptian identity that doesn't necessarily belong to one period or another. And that kind of stems from me, my belief in that identity is not something of the past, it's actually something in the present. Identity is who we are, not who you were. And who we are as an Egyptian, I think most Egyptians are confused with like, yeah, okay, are we do we belong to the ancient Egyptians? Are we Islamic? But we're Coptic, so we're not really relating to the Islamic culture. So there are so many things that gets entangled in the way. But maybe there's a way, or I'd like to use generative AI to kind of find a new way to represent the clash of identities, or like to describe what an Egyptian is. And for me, that's something you can really relate to if you just talk to an Egyptian. There's something in it. It's so intangible that I cannot describe it. But I think with visual identity, at least what I'm hoping for, that's what I'm trying to do, is that to just like try to find a vocabulary that represents the complexity of the Egyptian character. This can take so many forms. So again, I really like the idea of displaying like this visual vocabulary at homes, because I feel like home is a place where it's not segregated by class or like, by money or by social standard. I think that everybody kind of needs a home at one point. And I was thinking about like a way to represent a home that reflects some form of a collective identity. So identities, there are like a personal identity, so who you are and what you belong to, but also there's like a collective identity that basically forms your moral code, your beliefs, the language that you speak. And eventually it will be a collective identity of being a human being. So we all have like sharing one form of collective identity that is shaping who we are. And then as people, we turn out and shape that collective identity once again. So it's like a very, very interesting feedback loop. Again, on the visual vocabulary, or try to explore visual vocabulary with generative AI, it's really interesting to see how the models are being developed and how the technology, as it's being developed in such a crazy time, it's changing our ability to create, and it's also changing what we can do. It's changing how we think and how we perceive ideas. In this example, I found this example really interesting for me because I was always thinking about the hieroglyphics and how they were part of like the ancient Egyptians to show who they are. But now, if I if I built a building or like in that interior in the upper middle, it's just like if I placed hieroglyphics on the wall, I really don't understand it as an Egyptian. I don't know what they're about. So I don't know if I can really relate to them on a deeper level. So what I decided is that I decided to use the same technique, which is basically writings on the walls, which is the name of the series, and just like these hieroglyphics with actual real people and what they do in their daily lives, which is, I don't know, for me, that kind of, on a personal level, that kind of speaks to me of some form of a reality. So I don't know, like I don't view my work as surreal. I actually view it as an alternative reality or an actual reality. And in a way, for me, they kind of tell a story. So in this work, I don't intend to have one particular story for each character. Sometimes I let it to go naturally and see how generative AI understands Egypt from its point of view. And then it goes back to the idea of bias. That's a big topic. I can't talk about it right now, but it's such an interesting one. But also one of the things that I like about AI is that it has so many deformations. You can see like the hands are broken in here. There's like a mutated figure here. There's a baby head that popped up here. And I always like to keep these as is, basically because I believe that I need people to know this was created by generative AI. I don't want to hide it. And also, I think that it's really important to record or to document what the tools are able to do today, and then we can move with that. So basically, if you see this work, like 4 or 5 years later, you would know, yeah, I know this was created at this point of time. So in a way, I really like my work to be a document or a record of the development of the tool. It's also important to make a record of how these tools, or like the bias inside these tools, are being developed. So we would know like if we're doing a good job with these tools or not. Yeah, and my work in a way revolves around our intangible connection to each other and to our surroundings. I think, I don't know, as now that I live in California, I have a different take or a different perspective on Egypt and the cities in Egypt. As an architect, I also studied urban design. I think there's a lot of things, intangible connections between people and their surroundings and their cities. And as architects, it's sometimes really, really hard to connect that, or like to describe or to express that, or even use it as a language. But I think with generative AI now, that if we're going to the artistic part, not like let's forget architecture, let's forget engineering, let's think of as artists. And now you might, with generative AI, try to find new connections that, for me, describe some form of a beauty. Because when you see this, maybe some people will see chaos, but this chaos, it has history, it has implications, it has a beauty in it. At least that's how I see it. And the connection is like with the entire city. So the city has natural elements like the sea and the sky, but it also has buildings or building elements, but it also have like another elements, like, you know, like the buses, or like in Alexandria, there is what we call mashru'a or microbus, which is like a significant part of the middle class, how they travel basically in the city. And of course the tram, which I will talk about in just a minute. So this is a 1 minute animation, and yeah. The music in the background, if you don't know, this is by Said Darwish, arguably one of the greatest composers in the history, not only in Egypt. This is one of my favorite series. The City is a Tram. Again, this is talking about like the relationship between, or not the relationship. For me, I'm obsessed with the Alexandrian Tram. It's for me, it's such a very important icon for every Egyptian. And there's a lot of stories that are happening inside the tram, and you can really tell how Alexandria is doing as a city from being in the tram. Just like to notice how people are interacting with each other. When I was growing up, I didn't have cell phone, didn't have a smartphone. So when you stay at the tram, it's such a long trip. It might take you an hour to go to whatever place you're going to. And you can see a lot of good interactions inside the trams. You see people who are playing together, people are in love. You can see old people filled with disappointment. And I think Alexandria is kind of changing beyond what I've ever imagined it to be. So this project that's actually stemmed from like trying to understand new relationships between how the city kind of evolved over time. And yeah, so this will be, I'm having a solo exhibition tomorrow in Alexandria. I don't know if you've ever there. Tomorrow or the next month, where I'll be showing this this collection. It's my favorite one. And one story came from that is that I was displaying this, I was doing an exhibition in Sharjah earlier this year. It was called The City Will Hunt You, and it had it has like the series of Sham, the series that you just seen. This is another one, it's called The Cairo Sketches. And I remember when I was in the middle of the exhibition, I was approached by a person, and this person, he didn't know me, but he shook my hand and he came to the exhibition because he thought these images were real, and he immediately thought that I was homesick. He knew that I was away from home, and he was also away from home. So we started to have like this kind of conversation about like where does he come from, why he didn't come back home for so long. And it's just like it happened that it's kind of sparked a connection. Although he's not Egyptian, so he's not familiar with the cities, but he was familiar with the feeling. And this is something, I think this is like the greatest award that I had from showing my work, is that I managed to have like this intangible connection with strangers that I've never met. And you can see like there's a beauty in how people are connected without them really knowing. And by showing this work, it might find a new dialogue or a new way to talk to others. And this is another video. This is, you can see it and we'll talk about it later.
الشارع ده كنا ساكنين فيه زمان كل يوم يضيق زيادة أصبح
So, like the song that you were listening to, it's called the Shawara Hadith or Street Search Stories, and it's by a band called Firqat al-Masriyin, and the lyrics was written by Salah Shaheen, again, arguably one of the most lyricists ever lived. And again, this is like why I like using AI, because you can translate. It's fine, yeah, I think it's good. Okay. So like I said, like in the poem by Salah Shaheen, he was describing a way of how streets have changed over time. I think it's very beautiful to see the urban through the eyes, not of like an urbanist or like an architect, but through a poet. And he's describing how the cities have changed over time and how kind of it impacted him. And he's had like this nostalgic look over things that I find really, really beautiful. And again, AI is another tool that helps me explore this kind of nostalgia. For me, like again, the question of identity, these works are part of my submission to the Cairo International Art District in downtown. They are still images, but I just like moved them for your amusement, but not to burn everything. That's like one scene from my movie Identity Oblivious, For Forever Is Now. I think like what I'm trying to reflect on this series is that how people kind of treat their, like deal with identities, like whether it's like on a personal level or like on a collective level. The collection is like part of like it has like 3 artworks. The collection is called Stance, and the one on the left it's called Endurance, and this one is called Resolute. This is like a bigger. This is only like a small crop from the bigger image. But again, it's. I don't want to. I hate to kind of imply on people what I mean by my work, but again, they're talking about identities and like how everybody can deal with it. And for me, the most important part is that what is the pyramid? For me, the pyramid, when I look at it, it's not an engineering marvel. I know, like all the technical, like how it, what I don't know. Nobody knows what it takes to build a pyramid. It's very, very complicated. Just like in Chris's work, like he tries to study the angles and the geometry, which is amazing. But for me as an Egyptian, I try to think about it in a more like an abstract way. Like when you go anywhere in the world and you introduce yourself as an Egyptian, the first thing that comes up to their minds is the pyramid. So it's like the way that you introduce yourself to the world. So how you deal with that, how you deal with that stereotypical way of people identifying who you are, and how you deal with the matter of your identity to keep holding on to it, or you just let it go. How would you feel if your identity got attacked? Do you defend it, or you like to yield to other forces? Again, all these questions play around with generative AI and the bias and how it understands people and so on. These are like still shots from the movie that I'm not going to show you today. Again, this is it's called again Identity Oblivious. Maybe I'll show it at one point. It's going to be shown tonight on the VIP opening, and I'm probably going to show it on my exhibition in Alexandria for a month. Then I'm not sure if I'm going to post it on social media or not. I'm still trying to think about it, but again, the whole theme is about our relationship to our identity, who we are right now, and it has connections to so many things that's kind of happening in the world, or at least how I'm kind of reflecting on them. Finally, I think like for the matter of identity, I don't think that my thoughts are like entirely mine. I think, or like I hope for my work to be a continuation of so many people that came before me, or like maybe they're present now, who have like some form of rebellion against the status quo, who are trying to challenge the world and pose questions rather than answering them. I find inspirations in so many places, sometimes outside of the art world. Like one of my biggest, I don't know, icons or legends is Abdul Latif Abu Hif. He's a swimmer. I mean, for me, he's the ultimate icon swimmer. I mean, sorry, Michael Phillips, but he's such a legend. Whether like on the sporting level or even like as a human being, he done so many things at times that nobody would perceive they were true. And I don't think like my identity can belong to one person, or like they're centered around like Egypt. Like I don't know, George Carlin. I don't know if anybody knows George Carlin, the great stand-up comedian. George Orwell, Albert Camus. So like so many names to be talked about around here. Of course, Shadi Abdel Salam. Shadi Abdel Salam is the reason, or like maybe one of the great inspiration of my work, Identity Oblivious, that you're gonna see today if you were in the VIP opening. But basically, like Shadi Abdel Salam, like, and his questions about identity and what identity means is something that kind of lives with me, and it's such a great motivation for me to continue my work. Of course, like he's from Alexandria too, Abdul Latif Abu Hif too. So again, for me, like what I'm trying to say in a way is that I believe that creation is not inherently a human trait, and I think real human traits are both empathy and observation. And to organize connections, most importantly, our intangible connection to everyone and everything. And that kind of works really well with generative AI because it's a platform that connects everything. And we really need to for me, I try to center myself around the concept of empathy and relate to people and letting go of my ego. I think this will bring a vision that is more authentic, and it's less capitalist and more materialistic. Less capitalist and materialistic, sorry, and one that is, for better or worse, it's more human, for whatever that human means, while we live in the age of the machines. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Hassan. And I guess this is so relevant for me as an Alexandrian as well. And Trump, Said Darwish, and the mixture of things, I guess this is something related to the origins of the city as well. As you shaped it, for me, is this most of ideas, I guess, I think about it before, but I don't know how to do it in real. Most of them is unreal and I don't know how to say it, but not easy to do a structure. It's not related to things that you have seen before. So nowadays there is a question regarding the AI, and if the AI will be something instead of the artist and so on. So let me know about that and if the AI could do that or not.
Yeah, that's a tricky question.
Yeah.
I'm a pessimist person, so I don't know if I need to share my bleak notes to everybody, but again, I'm more interested in the idea of what the human being is doing. So whenever there's a new technology that emerges, it kind of replaces a human labor one way or another. So like people, like farmers were used like to do everything by hand, and then now there was a technology, so almost nobody does this by hand. And also with the Industrial Revolution, when the machines started to appear, like a lot of the labor had just got they let go the laborers, and actually there was a lot of revolutions, and the workers were standing with weapons in front of like the factories in Europe, demanding the owners not to bring machines in or they will kill them. So in that regards, I'm more interested in what is the creative perspective of what it means to be creative nowadays. Well, like if you're talking about like the artists, not so many artists. Like I feel privileged, and maybe like all the artists in the Art Egypt Forever's Now edition, they are privileged that they can share their own ideas. But that's not the same case for many artists. Or architects, or movie directors. Usually you have a brief from the client and you need to follow that brief to the letter, especially in architecture. I really feel that in architecture, that's why I left. Because it's such a challenging, maybe architecture is more, it's way different because there's a lot of investment. So like in order for somebody to give you like millions of dollars to build something, you need to listen to them exactly like they want to say. Also, there's also like the building codes, there's also a lot of engineering involved, etc. So the architect becomes a tool. Most architects, not all, every of them, they become a tool themselves. And in that regard, if you're a tool that's just following orders, AI will do this better than you. So now you'll be dispensed. So that's one point to look at things. And the other thing that I'm really interested in is what is creativity and what is originality. And are human beings are really original? My argument is that no, they're not original. They could be authentic. They could be genuine in their reflections. So I think the future will favor the brave, the people who can take chances in their ideas and they can trust themselves. However, the world, unfortunately, will crush many of them, as it has been crushing me so many times, and it still does. At that point, will AI replace us? Maybe. But again, this argument also, like, it becomes very, very not important because there are so many existential risks than the AI taking over the role of the artist. It can take you as a slave. It can kill you. So maybe that question also is. Maybe it's not relevant, I don't know.
But I guess AI depends on the people experience and people imagination. So it will not work if there is the human thing is not existent.
But so is humans. I mean, as a human, I learn from my other experiences. Like, if I was born in a dark room, I will never know anything. Yeah, so like I think, again, like we are trying to replicate a tool that thinks exactly as the human being without us knowing how exactly the human mind works. So basically we are creating a much smarter mind that does almost exactly everything that the human does. So for the argument, I see there is nothing, I don't know about the probabilities, but for me, there is nothing that stops the appearance of generative AI or like general, what is it called, AGI? Artificial General Intelligence, which is basically an entity that does everything that the human does. That's not my word. These are not my words. These are like, people who are developing these tools actively. And as a person who's been doing that, I've been following like the advancements of these tools. It's incredible. Like, I cannot keep up with how much they are being developed. Nobody does. And so I think people need to keep their minds open about the possibility of I don't know, like your world is gonna change. It is changing, and it's gonna change drastically. Maybe it won't, but probably it might change. And at that point, you need to be ready to embrace whatever that's gonna happen. Because these arguments, again, the arguments that we're having right now, it's not new. The same argument people had when they invented photography. They thought like it will be the end of words, but then it took another direction. Same thing with like utilizing CAD tools in architecture, which changed the industry and changed what an architect like does or mean. So the only thing that I'm sure about is that nobody can predict the future, although I am pessimist and I'm not very optimistic about what's going to happen, but I was talking to Ali about, yeah, you know all about it. But yeah, I think we need to keep our minds open. That's what I'm trying to say.
So you answered all of my questions during the presentation, but we will ask if someone have any question regarding the work, regarding the process.
You have a question? Yeah, sure.
Hi. I'm not an artist, but you talk about artificial intelligence. I don't know how it works with creating art, but you have the tramway, you have the sea, you have the colors, you have many ingredients. So what's the equation? What do you tell the computer, artificial intelligence, what to do? Is there an equation, or you just throw them on the computer, or what?
I don't know how to answer that. The problem is that there is at one point an equation, but it keeps on changing drastically, maybe day by day. This is because two things. First of all, I'm trying to understand how the tools work. And second of all, every time that I have an equation, the tool changes or like it's being developed, so I have to change my process entirely. One of the problems with generative AI or utilizing generative AI is that it's so unpredictable. And I like, for example, I give workshops and courses on how like to generate images and videos using generative AIs, but I think my process, or like the way that I'm describing it to people, is very limited, and that's because I think there is a lot of rooms to use this tool in so many different ways. So to answer your question, we're talking about the tram. I'm like, the first thing that I started with is that I wanted to understand how the tool, like how the AI tool that I'm using, it understands Alexandria. So like you will get surprised by like when you put in Alexandria, it just doesn't understand that it is a city. Sometimes it gives you a girl because it's not trained on such a data. So at that point, I would go and try to search for more words or prompts that the AI can understand and can generate. So I'll try the sea. Okay, it understands the sea. Then I'll try the tram. It understands the tram. And then I'll try a tram in Alexandria, which it won't define it really much. So I try, okay, I want a blue tram with white strips, like in Alexandria, and then it shows it to me. And then I try to put this into a composition, so the sea and the tram, and combine it as text, sometimes also as an image. And then I try to combine these with architectural elements. So, for example, the city is a tram. I was using like the Art Nouveau style, which is prominent in downtown Alexandria. And then you will see like all these weird mixes that will get that I get started with, and then I finish that part of the series. The next day there will be a new update on the tool that generates things that could be completely different from the terms of quality, but also the understanding of the language. So you work with that as well, and then you start building on that. Sometimes I use like photo collages. So there was like a video there that was the tram kind of moving over the sea. It didn't really understand it. So the way I did is that I went into Photoshop and then I did a quick photo collage, and then I used that to guide the AI to what I wanted. And then you do some mixes and matches. Sometimes I do like 3 or 4 iterations of different tools to generate that. But my process is quite a mess, and that's because I just want to be surprised in a way. So.
Other questions?
It's not copyrightable. It's not protected. People steal my work all the time. And like they use it in advertisements. Some people, well, yeah, I mean, there are so many ways to what you mean by copyright. So there is like people who see what I do and they copy it because it's easy. So basically, if I post an image on Instagram, you can just take a screenshot of the image. You can take that. Hello? Check. Okay. You can take that image and then feed it to the AI. It will tell you exactly what is the prompt, and it will generate image that looks exactly like, not exactly, it will, you will see it somehow like mine, and then people will use it and go into exhibitions. And there's something. You can hear me? Okay, cool. So that's like one part of it, which is nothing can protect it. Even like if you're an artist, people can like be inspired, but they're not inspired, they're stealing, or whatever it is. But there are also like the more outrageous way of like seeing my image put like on someone's page or even an exhibition or something. Or as an ad, like some companies like doing like as a tourist advertisement using my work, or interior design offices like putting my work, and yeah, this is a service that we can provide for you, which is fine. I mean, I don't know. I'm also talking from a point of privilege because I think that I am at a point where I really don't care about it. People know my work everywhere. So like whoever using this, they won't go very far with it. They're not going to get an award with it, basically, because they will know it's mine. But in general, the copywriting issue is not a problem with AI, it's a problem with everything. If somebody wants to steal your work, they will steal it one way or another. They don't need AI, so that's it.
In my work, it sounds always stronger than the time before. So what is changing in the process? How do you...
Do you mean, I maybe...
It's my work. But now you're feeding it prompts, and of course, you work with it before.
Yeah.
Without
when I say my work is my work, it's because that's the way that I need to present it to the society, but deep inside, I don't believe anything is. I think everything is an accumulation of the human experience, and I'm just a medium who's just like bringing these thoughts together. It's actually using, I don't know, I think that was how I thought all the time, even before using AI, is that everything is a mix in a way, and everything is connected, and I'm just here to put like a puzzle together. But with generative AI, it really allows me to let go of my ego. Like, that's not my work. I'm just exploring the beauty of it. That's how I, think about it. I'm not trying to, of course, like when you get credits, like, yeah, there's an artist who's showing his work and I put my name and do media, yeah, of course, that's a great feeling. But to be honest with you, in the essence, there's such a freedom in just like trying to work and explore beautiful things and letting go of like the ownership of things. I don't believe in ownership, basically. I don't think anybody really owns anything in like deep inside of me, but unfortunately, sometimes you have to call it my work, otherwise we won't be having this conversation. So, does that answer your question? Or? Yeah, okay. Yeah, true. Well, I mean, I have a bigger existential crisis than that. Like, I have no idea who I am and what I'm doing in life in general. I see your point, but I really don't have an answer to that. Again, I don't want to talk from a privilege, and I say, yeah, okay, I don't care about like the press, I don't care about like the lectures or anything. I think that's the same thing with everybody. Like whether if you're an actor or whatever you are. Your owner, I think the society credits you for what value you bring to the society, right? In that sense, like let's think about like, I don't know. I don't want to say like, let's say a rough example, maybe it's gonna wrong, maybe it's wrong, but let's say like, let's talk about Einstein, for example. Einstein didn't invent relativity, he discovered it. I look at my work in the same way. I'm trying to discover something. At any point, I'll never say I created, like not created, but I think about my work as like a work of discovery. If the society is going to reward me for it, it will feel weird that I won't take it. Especially that like in this society, like I have a family, so I need this kind of reward, especially like capital reward. Like I can't, create for, like I don't know. It's just, I struggle with this really, and I actually I appreciate the question, but yeah, there's no way to it. I have to live with that duality one way or another. Yeah. But I'm very privileged to say it. So I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. That's like the answer to it. I think the symmetry is the same. I think, again, for the originality, I don't believe that anybody's original in the way that is being perceived today. Even the people that showcase their work. My association with these people, or maybe if you want to say original, now that's a problem of like how we define what's original is. That's a big problem. So let's put original aside. For me, these people are authentic. They are trying to discover the beauty in the world. And for example, like Said Darwishi didn't invent the music. He used like, vocabulary from like a mixed vocabulary from like the common culture. So usually Said Darwish, for example, he will just go in the street and he'll meet a woman that is like in need of help and she'll say a phrase and he will build on that. Is that original? Now we will go back to the same argument. For me, just like to be in coherence with what I'm trying to say, maybe I'm not, but like to pinpoint on that is that I don't really care where ideas come from. I really care about how they reflect on you as a person, and to be who you really are, with no barriers, with no agenda, And I think these people that I've seen their work, I always had that feeling in their work that they're not trying to enforce some form of like a visual vocabulary or like a literal vocabulary or identity. They are trying to find things in the world that people don't usually see, just like Einstein he discovered like relativity. These people have put their hands on something that they made me see for the first time. Whether it's an idea, whether it's a tune, whether it's a form. Like for example, like Zaha Hadid. Her work was based off like Russian avant-garde art in the 1930s. So is she original or not? That's the same thing. I don't want to put myself next to these people. I don't believe that is my right, or I don't deserve that basically. But again, what I hope for my work is that it will be that kind of continuation to find beauty in places that people would usually look at. So maybe that's a good answer. Maybe, I don't know. But I'm trying to look for new things that people don't look at and just point at it. That's my work. So hey, there's a problem there. Hey, there's something that's beautiful there. And that's what I'm doing. So, and I think that's what other people were doing.
Which I do agree. The more we advance in the age of civilization and technology, the more it's harder to discover something new. I agree that it's people, let's take architecture itself for example. I also come from an architecture background. And if you look at it, back then each country or civilization had a distinctive style and distinctive building features, how they columns, borders, all that different stuff that highlighted their identity. So as we grow older, as we advance, like you said, I do agree that we are heading towards an age that is becoming more mundane and everything's looking similar to other countries. Right now, if you go to New York, Dubai, all those cities, you'll see the skyscrapers, they all look the same. It's not, you're losing a bit of sense of identity that is there, and I 100% agree with that, and it's hard to become original as you move forward. But there's also...
Is that not original? Was that not original?
Okay. But there's also the way you discover solutions or the way that you point at something that no one has been paying attention to. In its own, I think that's a form of originality. Like if you're highlighting something or a solution or a technique or a way or a utilization of a space or a building or whatever it is, the mediums or parts that you're using, it's a form that no one has been paying attention to.
Yes, but why did you do that in the first place? Like, what made you think that there's beauty in there? It's your circumstances. Like, say Dawish, only say Dawish, if he wasn't born in Alexandria in the 1900s, Zaha will be the same if she didn't come from the same family that she came from, and she didn't study architecture, and she wasn't an artist. So basically, again, what makes you think, or like what makes you, for you, the term will be original, for me will be authentic, will be your circumstances allowed you to be that. Even, let's for the argument's sake, which I don't agree on, let's say like you are capable of inventing a new idea, let's say, which is, for me, that doesn't make sense. But let's argue with that. The reason why you did that, it's not within your control. Basically, you were born with a certain IQ that you had no control in. Your parents you didn't choose your name, you didn't choose where you were born, you didn't choose your education, and you didn't choose your experiences, which led to that question. So, in order for me to look for that beauty, there's something outside that makes me do it. I don't look at it on that's my opinion. I don't look at it on my own. I'm incapable of doing it. I have no idea what's happening in suburb China. I have to look it up. I can tell you, I'll tell you what is the beauty, in the Chinese architecture in the 1500s. It doesn't make sense. Any idea that you have, in my opinion, it comes from your surroundings, even the language that we're speaking. Like, the way that you describe things, you put the ideas together, but the basic of the words, the basic of the meanings, it was established by the entire human race. So we are just trying to discover ideas in the void, like things that are already there. Like, think about if there's a supercomputer and it will be capable of, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to, let's stick to the supercomputer. Like, if there's a supercomputer that is able to make a simulation from, you feed it like all the languages, you feed it all the ideas, and then it will start like to combine all the meanings together. Eventually, all the ideas will be present in a space. And our role, that's my look at it, our role is like to try to find those ideas. It's like, again, a role of discovery. But whatever that you're going to come up with, eventually it will be revealed, whether to you or not. Some people are lucky to have this revelation, and some people are not. Why some people are lucky and some are not? This is life. I don't know. I'm sorry, what? Mm-hmm. Or you can control it? I don't believe in free will. I believe like in determinism. If you're interested in that topic, there's a great neuroscientist who's called Robert Sapolsky. He's an American neuroscientist, and he argues why we're living in a deterministic world, and he discusses that on the quantum level. So I don't want to enforce anything to you. I mean, free will, of course, is great. Yeah, I can get this coffee, I cannot, but I don't believe in that. So, but again, maybe, if you want to check his work, of course, he'll break down to you better than my whole weird shows.
So do you believe that we're only receivers, so we don't own the ideas, we just have them, and then either we adapt them and then kind of digest them in a way, and then present them in another way? And my question is, throughout this process, my way actually presenting this idea is not something original and is different from each one, or you know what I mean? I mean, if we saw the same thing, maybe I'll use all the tools and present it in a way different than your way. So I mean, this thing that I have and you have, which is kind of different, is not something original.
Yeah, then here, I'm not sure if I'm following, but do you mean that the single human experience means that you're original?
Yeah, I mean now, now we're talking about AI, or we're talking about like any kind of artwork or whatever. So I get inspired from things, and then I adjust them in my way, and then I present them my way. Depends on my experience, the way the tools I'm using, and everything. But definitely, I present that in another way than you or anyone else. I mean, this
Is that original or not?
exactly the thing is not original.
No, it's authentic.
It's authentic.
What is original? Original, that means it has no origin.
Yeah.
Or that's the way that I understand it, maybe it's wrong. That's everybody thinks, or maybe that's the like what I like to argue about is that is the artist at the center of the idea or not? And for me, if you see something, you receive something, you perceive something, and you kind of reflect on it on your own way, that means you are true to yourself. You have combined the sum of all of your experiences on that thing. So there are so many forces that are inside of you, which is like who you are, who your parents were, how that impacts your childhood, the language that you're speaking, the daily life that you go through, your DNA, how your brain was wired. There's all these things are connected and they are represented in your work. Now, as an artist, in my opinion, it's your duty to be as true as possible to that, and not to be swayed by things like being famous or like ideas even about ego or like whatever. For me, like originality, which again, it's not originality, but authenticity, that's my take on it, is that to find your place in the world. And your place in the world is that you're not the center of it. I don't think I'm important in the world. I'm just part of it. And I'm part of a greater whole, and that's what I'm trying. Like the human consciousness, it makes you like it gives you like this tunnel vision on a single entity, which is you and what affects you. But on the global scale, if you think of outside of yourself, you'll find yourself like you're connected to a greater whole, and that's much more important to you. The people that have shown your work, like the people that I was talking about today, I admire them, but they are part of a greater thing. So I don't like them for them. I don't know them personally, but I like them for what they represented and how they try to find some kind of a harmony in a world with authenticity and originality. That again, just like for the sake of argument. So yeah, I don't think what you're describing. I think it's authenticity, not originality. Maybe I'm wrong. Like again, this word is kind of driving me crazy, and I keep like debating with people about what is original or not. But at least that's how I understand it. So. Any more questions? I mean, well, it's going to be hard because the direct influence of Sharia Hassan on my work is within the identity of Libis, the video, that I can't really talk about so much. But again, to give you a snapshot, like basically the video that I've created is only a 2 minutes video, and it's the epic center of the movie is I cropped a script from the movie The Mummy, Al-Mumia from Sharia Hassan, and this script is actually what drove the work. And again, it's centered about like identity, and it's centered about how a person is gone in such a conflict to understand the identity and to find out what's important for them. I wish I can expand more on it, but again, Sharia Hassan is like for me is of course. First of all, he's Alexandrian and he's an architect, and he brought something that I've never seen before on the Egyptian cinema. He only did like this. This is only one big movie that he did, like it's Mumia. The other one was Al-Fallah Al-Fasih, and he died while working on his biggest movie, Akhnatoon. And his way to shed light on a very interesting manner in such a beautiful and a magnificent way in the regards of like the script, in regards of like the cinematography, the photography. It's breathtaking. And I carry like when I listen to his like interviews, and I carry his words with me all the time. For me, Allah yarhamu, he was amazing. Any other questions? No. Yeah, I think that's it, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, appreciate it.